Welcome to the A New Insight podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am so excited to have internationally recognized mindset trainer, master of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy, TEDx Temecula speaker, and founder of NeuroMasters Academy, Reg Malhotra, with us today. Reg, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
Reg and I shared the stage at TEDx Temecula, and I just found his talk so intriguing and really wanted to get to know him a little bit better. So I invited him on. He's joining us from Australia today. So I'm going to read a little bit about Reg, and then I'm going to drill him with some questions. Reg Malhotra is an internationally recognized mindset trainer, master of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy, TEDx Temecula speaker, and founder of NeuroMasters Academy. He helps high performers and everyday individuals rewire limiting beliefs, release emotional blocks, and build mental resilience during times of stress, scarcity, and uncertainty, something we all need right now. Reg teaches practical tools to master mindset, regulate emotions, and reinvent how we relate to ourselves and the people we love so that we can thrive regardless of external circumstances. So, I would love to hear what led you to this type of training. What got you interested in helping to rewire our mindset?
Sure, and thanks for that question. Look, like many people, I had my share of adversities, in the earlier part of life, and you kind of don't look at those things. You don't address them. You move on. You move to the next thing, whether it's work or marriage, everything that we do. And somewhere along the line, I kind of had an indication that there is lack of either control over my emotions or there is what I call now as something hidden that I'm not aware of, right? Something like, why am I reacting this way? Why am I going down this negative, you know thinking route? I was a good observer of that, but I didn't do anything about it. I knew something didn't feel right. I would see all these people who would kind of, or it appeared they had a handle on their life, and you know how everyone puts on masks, as we know, but it was unclear to me why different people do things differently. Pretty simple. The other thing I noticed was, growing up and even after, it was like I had this sense I could see that everyone's at a level of unhappiness. We just had to choose what level we want to have. You want to have our 0 to 10, you want to have number 7 or 8. That's what it appeared to me, Dr. Supatra. Like I wasn't, it was just all perceptions. I'm like, something ain't right. And so I felt that everyone is suffering, particularly in relationships, by the way. I just could not see a model of relationships where I could say, wow, right? And so it was that curiosity, it was that um, thirst, if you will, of really finding out what's happening inside of me and what separates those who've got it from those who are just so far from it. It was just
Yes.
constant curiosity.
So, curiosity about your mindset, and give me a picture of what your mindset looked like at that time. What were you focusing on that was keeping you from the things that you wanted the most?
In terms of my mindset at the time, it was built off of a few different things. It was lack of emotional control. It was reactive, very, very reactive. It was like just not doing anything in the middle of something happening and me responding to it. It was full of comparisons, which is a disease. I call it a disease now. Full of comparing myself to other people. Um, and it was full of stories. I call them self stories now, self stories, which included images, sounds, feelings of things that had happened. It was full of self pity. And at some level, it was also not full, but there was an element of why why did this happen to me? And today I'll talk about that later. A lot of the work is like, how do you go from why me to try me?
I see. I think a lot of us do get swept up in comparisons and what we don't have. And that often takes us further away from what we actually want. But I don't think people are generally conscious of that. And that's why I love rewiring mindsets. I love neuro linguistic programming. I love the concentrated or the clinical use of hypnotherapy as well.
Yes.
And the way that we met was really interesting. We met through TEDx Temecula and both shared the stage there. And your talk was so interesting to me. It was basically about reinventing your relationship by seeing your partner and your home life through a new lens rather than forcing them into the old mold. So I think that this coincides with, our mindset. We tend to get locked into a certain way of thinking about things, and our relationships are very similar in that we get locked into the old idea of our partner. What inspired that message, and how has that shaped the way that you teach transformation through relationships or through just your personal journey?
Sure. Yeah, that talk was it was very important to me to get that message out, and it was doing this work, helping people change how they see life, change their own stories, and behave and think differently for the rest of their life. Kind of inspired that because I was watching that with myself and my wife Andrea, who you met. Is that before we did all this work on ourselves as well, we had a different idea of who we were and who each of us were to each of us, right? And I noticed that the person that she married all those years ago is not who I am now. I'm
Mm.
just not that guy. And in the more traditional thinking system, it sounds like, wait, I'm not the person you married, and you're not the person I married. And typically we're like, oh, you heard those lines like, you've changed. And what we were realizing was we never felt like saying it. It wasn't coming to us, oh, you've changed. You're not the person I met. You're not the person I married. And I'm like, wait, hang on. Don't people get upset about that? You're not the person I met. Like, you've changed. And I thought, oh my God, this is not a bad story for us. It's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful story that I'm not wanting her to be who she was. This is opposite to what everyone says. Like,
Mm.
really, people say, hey, I remember when we first met, you used to do this and you used to do that, and now you don't do that any longer. Okay? Let's think about that for a moment. There's this saying that most people are trying to have a relationship with who you used to be because that's the image they hold of you. And so if we have changed that drastically, then there's got to be something to that, right? In a relationship, especially as long as ours, we've been married for 22 years now. And we started to explore where I really enjoy who you are now. I'm not having a problem with it. Like, I love who you are. But do you remember you never thought like this? You never spoke like this? You never tried these things. You were like, oh, I'm not that. I don't do that. So that was the inspiration behind. I said, what if, especially a long term relationship, we don't hold each other to who we used to be, but we allowed this and we enjoyed this? And what if there is like I kind of postulated really, what if there is a 3 5 year cycle where if partners allow each other to learn new things, to produce new behaviors and not hold them to who they used to be? What if we find this whole new person at the end of every 3 5 years? And what if that's That is the secret to a relationship, right? So
I
that
actually think that that is probably the secret because so many people, when they've been with someone for so long, they get into kind of a rut of thinking where I think she's going to say this the same way, I'm going to react in this same way, but you're not taking into account all of the ways that you've actually changed, and you're also not inviting growth. And I think that when you invite growth and you bring in curiosity, especially if you're seeing your partner do something or act in a certain way that's out of the norm, try to be curious about what they're doing and see if you can learn something new and grow and change as well. I think it was so interesting in your talk that you mentioned it was so important to actually change the environment. Can you talk a little bit about that and give people some tips, you know, on how they might be able to do that, whether it's affordably or, just go the full gamut and completely change their environment and how that might change the way that you see your partner?
Sure. Yeah, and that's something we stumbled upon as well. As we were, we had two children, or, a long time ago, who are now grown-ups. And there was a lot of things we brought into our environment. Started with furniture, um, and these things, they're reminders, and they were good reminders, by the way. Remember when Jay was little and we would talk like that. But we noticed something when we would move homes. As we do, we get rid of some things, and we would bring in new things into the environment, and it came up for discussion a few times. you know Out of all the things we've ever had, we've only got so many of these left now. And it's interesting because it feels new, it feels fresh, it kind of represents who we are now. Our taste has changed. On the other side, when we saw stuff from the past, we couldn't help but talk about it. And so that led to this thinking. And in neurolinguistic programming, we talk a lot about anchoring, right? Things are anchors. Things can become anchors. Even places in your house where you had an argument, there was heated debate, there was emotions. From an NLP perspective, even that room can act like a negative anchor. I often raise this in our programs, and when I say to people, did you know that if you've had a lot of heavy arguments in your bedroom and you felt a lot of emotions, the bedroom itself could act like a negative anchor for you. We often recommend to people to move homes every 3 to 5 years, because you
Wow.
kill off all the negative anchors, new
Mhm.
areas, new. So it came from that, and I realized that these external things, they can become nostalgic, but it's highly possible that they are bringing back those states, those old emotions, and as a result, the old lens through which you see your partner.
Right. So changing that lens, and it can be small, everyone, and it doesn't necessarily, if you can't afford to move, of course you shouldn't move, but you can do certain small things, changing just one corner of your house, changing up the pictures, the furniture in that little corner, and seeing what happens to your energy and what comes into your relationship as a result. I think that that was a really novel and profound idea, and of course why it made it to the TEDx stage is, you don't realize how your environment, when you're seeing it over and over again in the same way, how that's actually keeping you stuck and trapped. So speaking of that, I think so many people feel trapped in stress and scarcity and uncertainty. Why do you think that mindset work is essential now more than ever?
Yeah, I think mindset work has always been important, and you're quite right. Now, with where we are in history, the rate of change, the percentage rate of change coming up in the next 12 to 24 months is going to be bigger than the last 1,000 years combined, right? So mindset has always been important. And let's break that word, mind and set. Means it's a set. It's a set of ideas, beliefs, and convictions that we hold to be true. Notice what I said there, that we hold to be true, right? Are there things that you believed when you were 12 years old that are actually no longer true?
Mm.
So that already tells us that right now we have a set of beliefs and convictions and ideas that we consider to be true for all sorts of reasons.
Mhm.
What if I told you in 5 years from now, it's possible that a lot of them will no longer be true for you? So if you already know that, then it is how you hold these things in your mind, how you see things, and you want to be flexible. So with everything changing around us, the way we communicate, very soon the way we work, the way we do business, the way we think about our future, right? All those should be's, how things should have turned out to be, are going to be up for question and debate. And I think there's a set of people that are going to continue to resist. They're going to continue to fight for how things should be. And the only way out of that, to have that level of flexibility, to dance with uncertainty, is to allow your mindset to become your weapon of choice, your torch with which you shine the light, the way you interpret. I mean, how is this even optional? I think I would be a
Mm.
hot mess, Dr. Sabatra, if I didn't completely become aware of what I'm thinking, why I'm thinking this. Is it true? What else could this mean? Who put this in here? Is it relevant any longer? If I didn't have these series of questions and thought processes, I'll just be at the what do you call it? We have this term called effect, cause or effect. I'll be the effect of everything. I'll be the effect of
Mhm.
the old boss. I'll be the effect of the weather, the economy, the government, with everything that's happening now. I'm consistently at effect. That affects my emotions. That affects my behaviors. So what choice do you have?
Oh, exactly. And this is really the foundation behind cognitive behavioral therapy. They're so similar because what we find is that we come into this world a little bit tabula rasa, but we have our own personalities, and then we're shaped often, of course, by our primary attachments to our caregivers, by what we've grown up with, and we develop a series of beliefs that just become kind of automatic thoughts and automatic programming over time. Well, I'm just stubborn or I'm just anxious. And you might not be that at all. You were just conditioned into that. And when you break down the thought processes itself, a thought elicits a feeling, and then that feeling elicits a certain behavior. So if your thoughts are primarily like, I'm worthless or I'm not good enough, those are probably the two most common thoughts that people tend to develop over time. You
Yeah.
feel terrible, you feel depressed, you feel inadequate, and you tend to behave in certain ways that are similar to that. And I think it's so valuable to take, and shine a light on that and ask yourself, how is that helping me? Is that even true? And of course, when you examine the thought, I'm worthless, you can absolutely 100% come to the conclusion that you are worthwhile. Everyone is just because they are born. And when you change that thought, the way that that thought makes you feel like I'm worthwhile or I'm lovable makes you feel warm, makes you feel hopeful, makes you feel loved, and you tend to act differently. And when you realize how powerful that is, how much you can change your life just by changing one single thought, that to me is amazing. And I think a lot of people tend to poo-poo that a little bit, and they should really take a deeper look at that. And this is core central part of the work that I do with my clients. So I want to know how you use neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy to help people shift from those kind of less helpful mindsets and into something that is more empowering.
Yeah, neurolinguistic programming, it's a big fancy title, I suppose, but it's really just an ability to unpack. The key word is unpack. How do you do things inside, right? uh, if we give advice to people, hey, change your thoughts and think this way, a lot of the time it doesn't work for people. Why is that?
Mhm.
Because there are processes that happen inside of us, right? So neurolinguistic programming is one way of saying, how do you do this behavior now? Oh, I procrastinate. Okay, let's unpack. How do you get to it? Oh, I'll give you an example. Many, many years ago, I would come down and sit on my computer in the morning. I would see all these unread emails. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting a visual. This is really unpacking at a granular level. I'm seeing a visual that leads to a self talk. Oh my God, that's a lot of unread emails, right?
Mhm.
And the negative self talk begins. Then, so that you got, we call it V, visual, self talk, and that leads to a feeling. So there's a process that occurs, it's step by step. That negative feeling got me up from the computer over to the coffee machine, and I wasn't back till 45 minutes. And mind you,
Mhm.
this was every day, if not every second day. So it's the unpacking. And in this field, we can interfere, delete, or change one of those steps. So could we replace that self-talk with something else? Now you're looking at the sequence. If A plus B is equal to C, then if you remove B, it's no longer C. It's A plus, something else will be some. So it was that thinking that is so powerful. And so you disrupt the procrast. And here's what we say: the same sequence that leads you to procrastination with your work, it's the same order and sequence that would lead you to procrastinate on going to the gym. Right. So this really fascinated me. I'm like, wow, I like to get mechanical with this stuff. I love this. In fact, I've had, clients who were suicidal. I'm not a suicide prevention expert, but I will tell you, I was able to decipher the exact, we call it an internal syntax, heard my father's voice, said to myself, why am I even here? I'm loser. Got extremely negative feelings equal to I should take my own life. And we were able to help him interrupt that sequence. Instead of him getting that negative feeling, he had an image of his wife massaging his head. Can you believe that? That
Mm.
led to a different outcome. So the key word is unpacking. And the second element of this is these, beliefs and these ideas, as you would know from CBT, they're lodged through what we call as SEEs, significant emotional events. We all have a
Mhm.
series of events that have happened in our life that are not just, the odd person, cutting you off on the road. They're significant. How do you know that? You can think of that event from the past and you can feel emotion in your body now. Well, guess what? The event is alive. I like to put it very simply. Your brain doesn't know the difference in real and imagine. It doesn't know
Nope.
the difference in future and past. So it's like it's using energy to keep it alive. So these significant emotional events is where certain decisions are made, consciously or unconsciously. That's where the decision is made. I'm useless. I'm not worthy. So we get to the source. Where is that event? We use linguistics to figure out, and then we disconnect the emotion from the event. Now you can look at the event and like, oh, it's like a movie. That has a material impact on people's lives. And people, me too, I would talk about an old event and I would have tears in my eyes. Well, that's not a very good thing. That means it's alive.
Right.
So all of
Right.
NLP and hypnosis, they work. Let's call it for the purpose of this talk, the subconscious mind or the deeper mind is where this data is lodged, and we go out and unpack all of that.
And I would assume with the hypnotherapy, and I've learned a little bit about that through going to conferences and seeing, different talks on hypnotherapy, that that involves tapping into the nervous system because you are absolutely right. You can like see that your thought is unproductive, but if you are not regulating your nervous system, especially around the new thought, you can think all you want and nothing is going to change, especially if your nervous system is dysregulated. I work a lot with my clients with that because a lot of these thoughts come out of trauma responses.
Yeah.
You freeze, you fight, you flee, you fawn for certain reasons so that you can try to create safety. It never really works when you're, engaged in these trauma responses. And I like to help people understand that the trauma response is a nervous system response. And if they can really learn how to regulate their nervous system, they can create safety in the body. And when we have safety in the body, that's when we can program these new thoughts. And when we're programming the thoughts, centered around a safe nervous system, it changes everything. It makes you understand that it is possible to change those thoughts. It makes you more objective and makes you understand when you are going into these old trauma responses automatically and
Mm.
stopping and changing. So, give me a picture of how you might do that with hypnosis.
Yeah, I want to tap into your point about safety. I think you're quite right. It's really what everything comes down to. What is the survival mode? The brain saying, "I'm not safe." And you also spoke about calming the nervous system down or regulating it so we can think with clarity again. And so, what hypnosis or hypnotherapy is very useful for is taking your old ideas, your self stories, your limitations, and your fears, and inserting in that state of trance, which is a really just a very relaxed state. It's a very powerful state. I think learning and healing is incredible in that state to be able to continually plan, and this is the key word, suggestions, a new suggestion of who you are or who you can be. And bit by bit, it overrides. In other words, it almost forgets those old stories with new self talk, new stories, new belief systems. Like you said earlier, the behaviors would have to change. I mean, how do you explain a smoker who's been smoking for 20 years having a session with one of my trained practitioners for 90 minutes and never ever wants to smoke again? Smoking is a pattern. What else is a pattern? Self hate, self sabotage. These are all patterns. If you treat them like patterns, hypnosis is and NLP are just gorgeous to override. Override is the key word. Override these old patterns.
Yes, I would agree fully. And I think the people that have the hardest time understanding that have the hardest time with their nervous system. And if we can help them to relax and really feel what true relaxation and calm and peace feel like, in their bodies, they can start to adopt those more calm thoughts. It's really hard when you are stuck in that fight or flight, freeze, fawn mode to even conceive of your body feeling calm. I'm so excited. We're out of time for this half though, and I have a million more questions for you. You guys, you have to come back. This is a fascinating conversation, and we hope you come back for the second half of this amazing interview with internationally recognized mindset trainer, master of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy, fellow TEDx Temecula speaker, and founder of Neuromasters Academy, Reg Malhotra. Thanks, Reg.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the A New Insight podcast. Please remember the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anu.insight and at anu-insight.com under the A New Insight podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anu.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.